I mean, it's almost like we've got a group editor. If you go to these media houses, all of them, it's a different media house, but the same questions. I don't see the EFF as the enemy and all that. The MK party will take over because we've got our people, even in the DA, we've got I'm telling you, we have our people everywhere. I think we should celebrate the fact that Trump has got issues with South Africa. I celebrate that because it means South Africa is free to be sovereign.
Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Umkhonto weSizwe Party MP and someone who's been a feature of South Africa's political landscape for many years, both in government and in the political space, Mr. Mzwanele Manyi. Thank you so much for joining us on SMWX.
I feel privileged to have cracked this very important platform, the invite to this major platform. I know that you are rivaling big media, so well done.
Absolutely, I really appreciate it. Well, this is an MK podcast. I thought you were
Yeah, no, I've heard about those kinds of insinuations, but but it's what it is.
Absolutely, and we're not going to stop inviting members of your party because it's
you should not allow blackmail.
No, absolutely, and you know,
but we've got something to offer as MK, so I don't blame you for insisting because we offer a lot more things. Except we don't insult.
Well, now you're getting it.
Okay, let's not go there.
You know, I'm interested in your journey to Umkhonto weSizwe.
Yeah.
Because you have an interesting political life in our country. You've been within the ANC, you've been in the EFF, now you're at Umkhonto weSizwe. Talk to us about that journey and your decision to join MK.
Yeah, no, look, I think firstly, leaving the ANC was a decision that I never foresaw coming, you know. All of us have always thought we were black, green and gold until the ANC lost its way. And I think, truth be told, the ANC lost its way really from December 2017 at that conference in Nasrec. That's where things happened. Obviously, there were two slates there, NDZ and the CR slate. And the NDZ was actually cleaning the floor with the votes there. We were very. I was in that space. So if there was no interference, NDZ should have won that conference. Now we all know Rob Haarzavi has told us now that Rob has got information from the right sources. We know now that David Mabuza was bribed to do that. And by the way, you could see this. We were at the conference around the 2 a.m.s. We heard the Mpumalanga crowd singing a song that is not sort of part of what NDZ song has been singing.
At 2 a.m.
At 2 a.m. because the voting was like overnight. Around those times, all of a sudden they began to sing Zizo Jigizinto and all of that, which was, you know. So anyway, so they started to do those songs and we knew, we didn't really know. We just thought, well, what's going on? Not sure. But Rob has told us now that, the envelope came in.
What are your memories of that conference? It's interesting that you go there because it's a very important moment in our country's history. It was the start of the Ramaphosa era. What do you recall from that time in 2017?
What I recall from that conference is that conference was a watershed conference. This is when the ANC had made a fundamental decision to say step change in terms of transformation. This is a conference that took all kinds of the most progressive decisions on radical economic transformation. Decisions to expropriate without compensation were taken in that conference. Decisions to nationalize the Reserve Bank were taken in that conference. Decisions to have a state bank, decisions to ensure that we've got our own state-run pharmaceutical company were taken in that. So that conference was a conference that had realized that not much had happened in the substantive way. So therefore, there had to be a step change, as it were. And unfortunately, the dollar came in, or the brown envelope came in, things went differently. 2018, you hear the deployees of the ANC speaking against conference resolutions on these matters I've just listed here, including Mr. Ramaphosa himself, the late Tito Mboweni, may his soul rest in peace. He was not going to have National Bank nationalized under his watch and all of that. So for me, as the person that grew up in the ANC, I've always known that the highest decision-making body is the conference. So once the conference speaks, because also you must remember, the ANC subscribes to democratic centralism, which means that indeed there will be a participation and robust engagement in the beginning, but once the organization takes a decision at the end, everybody must line up. You must defend that decision as if it was your own decision.
Absolutely.
That's how we've known things. But 2018, after they kicked out President Zuma unceremoniously, then everything started to go south. Pronouncements were against the conference resolutions. And what was funny is that, we've always also knew that the ANC branches are your last line of defense. And all of a sudden, even the branches were neutralized. There was no branch that stood up to defend the revolution. Everything was just neutralized. That's at that point that I realized that this movement has lost its way. Even at a personal level, when I was running the we're calling it Afro World View at the time, the former ANN7. That channel should not have closed. It was doing well. It was not making a loss. The only vulnerability it had was that it was operating on a platform of multi-choice, so we're at the mercy of multi-choice. That platform was not even operating, we're not getting any money from government. It was pure 100% private arrangement. But I strongly believe that if the ANC did not want that platform to close, that platform would not have closed. So, and obviously also the EFF did a lot of negative campaign of that channel, despite various efforts that one made to try and say to them that come and look at the paperwork and see that this is not what you think it is, but that opportunity to table that was never granted. So, and the issue for me there was the issue of job losses. The jobs that were lost in that arrangement, my heart is still sore even today. Young people lost their houses, others, they had their families splitting because of all of these financial hardships, all because of something that could have been avoided. I mean, if they wanted to deal with Manyi, they could have dealt with Manyi in a way that does not compromise the lives of the young people that were employed there. So indeed, my heart is still sore about that, what happened. And then that also then showed me that this is not the organization that loves particularly Africans, because most of the people that were employed, they were really Africans who were rejected from these other places. So this was their last place where they could express themselves in this space. And you would know that even inexperienced people were given opportunities there. They were making all kinds of mistakes, and it was a laughingstock in the beginning. But because there was a determination to say no one was born an expert in anything, so therefore it will be a learning thing. That was the posture that we took. And but I'm happy now today that at least most of them were absorbed, and they're doing very well in these platforms that were laughing at them.
There are many senior journalists around the country who worked at first ANN7 and then Afro World.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a situation that we have, which could have been. When that happened, for me, that was the straw that broke the camel's back to say, this is not what we thought it is. It's almost like, you know, your dad uses this example of a hijacked bus. That you think that this is the bus, can't you know, the bus has been hijacked. It's all the thugs that are driving this bus now. When I was just saying the brand, so that's what actually left with the ANC. It's just the brand, but what is inside there is something. It's a neoliberal arrangement. It's people that find it easy to have a deal with the DA and have a problem having a deal with the MK party or with the EFF, as it were. That alone should tell you that this is not the ANC that Oliver Tambo would recognize. This ANC Mandela would not recognize. So that's what we have. So then I just found that this is not what I signed up for. Then I had to jump ship. So that's what happened. And before I had another stopover before EFF, ATM.
Of course, yeah.
ATM, went to ATM. I went, the understanding with ATM was that they had put together all the big churches and all that. So I just thought this vehicle will deliver the revolution that is required. Now, unfortunately, that ATM actually is a project undermined because just as it was about to take off, some of these churches pulled out. So I sit here knowing that they were forced to pull out because there are other forces that were at play. So that undermined the growth of the ATM. So then I made the call that, well, the next best vehicle that will push the revolution is the EFF. And so on. So I joined the EFF, and whilst we were busy settling in there, then MK party came. In fact, to be honest with you, when President Zuma was talking about MK party, and saying he wanted to save the ANC, that's what delayed my coming into the MK party. Because I said, President, what is this thing that we're trying to save here? There's nothing here. And so on. And Baba was very strong and saying, no, because unenyoka. If unenyoka, we are balega. And so on. So that was his understanding. And where some of us were saying, but it doesn't look, this snake will actually devour you. So it's best to get out.
It's actually taken over the house now.
It is. The snake has taken over the house. Just get out, demolish the house, and rebuild the house and all that. So the MK party is actually now the organization that will fulfill even the 1912 objectives of liberating this country properly and making sure that the poorest of the poor have dignity and all of that. So the MK party has taken that role, and we're calling on even the progressive elements in the ANC to join the MK party. All progressive elements, we are saying the house with the critical mass as we speak here and now is the MK party. This is just empirical evidence and all of that. As we sit here and now, the MK party is represented in 7 provinces, 7. That is not a mean feat.
Absolutely. Biggest party in KZN.
It's the biggest party in KZN. And all of this achieved within a period of 5-6 months. Now you can imagine going forward, the future of MK party is just too bright.
There's so much that you said that I want to delve into there. But I actually want to start with what you were saying about the media, because I was one of the biggest critics of ANN7 as well. I don't know if that ever reached you. I was so small. No. Okay, good.
Yeah.
But I must say, in the period since Afro Worldview, as it then became, left the scene, what one did realize is that the diversity of opinions then shrank. And then we were only in the first Ramaphosa era, I would say before digital media came along to disrupt things later. We were only fed one media narrative for like 5 years. And that was even worse, because then I couldn't go to ANN7 and think, okay, what is this perspective? I may disagree with it, but let me educate myself on a different perspective. And then I can go to an ENCA and then hear a different perspective. Now, it felt as though the media was almost singing in a chorus together. And that really deprived South Africans of a diversity of opinion on the media landscape.
Sure. No, it's almost like we've got a group editor. If you go to these media houses, all of them, it's a different media house, but the same questions and all of that. So there's a monotony that is happening. So there's no diversity of media, and Afro Worldview was seeking to achieve that diversity and looking at different things. For instance, even some of the failures of government, the mainstream media was focusing on certain people, and those that they were not focusing on, the Afro Worldview was focusing on. For instance, we were focusing on the corruption in National Treasury, the project that even as we speak is still highly contested, the IFMS project, where billions of rands have been spent on that thing, but even today it hasn't taken off the ground. But some people are sitting pretty out of that project. Now, Afro Worldview dealt with that matter and they had to expose this thing. There's even an auditor's report, their own internal audit, that had shown some 30 odd, what they call catastrophic findings. Nobody wants to do anything about it because National Treasury is part of the establishment. Even that internal report, I went and deposited at the Zondo Commission, but it didn't see the light of day because Zondo is also part of the mix as well. So that's a situation that we have.
Speaking of the Zondo Commission, I mean, what are your thoughts reflecting back on the commission now? If I'm not mistaken, Chief Justice then Zondo didn't, or he wasn't Chief Justice at the time when you were at the commission, but when the report was released, didn't have pleasant things to say about your role in communications. What do you make of the commission now that we're a few years out of the publication of the report?
Yeah, no, I think every day you can see that that was just a farce that was happening there. I mean, firstly, if you were to look, that commission was meant to deal with the report that Thuli Madonsela had put together to finish the work, because Thuli did not have the budget and all of that. So it had to finish the work, and the key thing there was to deal with the state capture, and the allegation was that the Guptas had the executive authority by default, as it were. So evidence needed to be brought forward to deal with that, and also some elements of that happening at Eskom. If you go to that report, even today, that report of Thuli Madonsela, about 50% of that report is about the toing and froing between Eskom under Brian Molefe and Glencore. And all of that. And that was it was an economic issue where Glencore was trying to Armstrong Brian, and Brian was not allowing that to happen. And that's what is that. And Brian, and at the time, even Mr. Ramaphosa himself was part of some of the directors of this company. And he was also conflicted. And Brian made all kinds of submissions in this regard.
He said he was chairperson of the board of.
Yes. So all of that fact that such an important issue, and at one point he was also chairperson of the war room of Eskom and all of that, and at the same time he has his company here, Glencore, that is also doing business with them. None of that showed in the report of Zondo, which shows that Zondo actually was just a factionalist, as it were. It was just a factionalist pushing a particular agenda for a particular faction. In my case, it's the simplest thing it says enabled state capture. Now, let's unpack what that means. It's a simple thing. And, you know, I refer to the affidavit by Themba Maseko. I call him Saint Maseko because this is a man that can do no wrong. Now, in his affidavit, which is freely available on Google, in his affidavit, Maseko makes a point which I've made at the Zondo Commission myself. He says that GCIS does not have a budget of its own in the first instance. At GCIS, you consolidate the budget from the other departments, and then you use that budget to go and negotiate for bulk discounts and all of that.
I see.
That's really what you do with that budget. But when that budget comes, it comes spoken for. A DG from the other department, from the other line function, will say to you, you shall put this at Business Day, you shall put this at the New Age, you shall put this at the Star and whatever. You can persuade them to say, no, I've got this Telma system here. In terms of this system, this advert and the psychographics of this execution require this particular medium. But once a decision is made by a line function, you can't reverse it. So then you have to sit here and consolidate and go and work with what you have, and then you get the blame for it. Now, if people decided that they want their adverts in the New Age, even if you don't want them there as GCIS, you can't overrule those decisions. GCIS still doesn't have authority over other departments. Once they decide, you go to execute. And I said to Zondo, he in fact he asked this question, whether there's a paperwork on this. Yeah. And I thought, okay, now the man is onto it. I said, yes. These things get requisitioned, the signs get signed off and everything. Now, if Zondo was interested in the truth, he should have gone to GCIS and investigated those submissions by the departments to see whether the department says Business Day Manyi puts it at the New Age. You would not find that.
Yeah.
But if he was interested in the truth, that's what he should have done. So I did not even investigate that. And then he just makes a statement that Manyi enables state capture. So I don't respect Zondo, to be honest with you. I lost respect for him since then. And I was not going to spend millions trying to review. People say, no, I don't review the report. What am I reviewing here? Even in his recommendations, it did not recommend anything on my name because he knew that he had nothing to go on. So all he managed to do is just to smear my name. That's why I just don't like this man. That's all he succeeded to do. Smear my name as somebody that is enabling corruption and all of that, but never put any evidence. I mean, you can go and check even today. Zondo did not put any evidence to substantiate these libellous comments that he made about my name. So, yeah, so I really don't respect that man. And I hear today, even with Arthur Fraser, he went to town about how much 9 billion would have been used to build RDP houses and everything and all of that. He does not allow, he refused Fraser to come and have a discussion at the commission to explain himself. He brought everybody that was talking against him, but him, when he must come, he doesn't. And now, a couple of weeks ago, now it turns out that 9 billion was actually 9 million. Now, but right now, imagine what he has done to Fraser's name. So he has messed up our names, Zondo. So a lot of us have got zero respect for the man.
And as you say, it did put certain people in a difficult position because aspersions were cast over your names.
Yeah.
But then either the recommendation was that, well, there need to be further investigations.
Yeah.
Or there were no recommendations. And then so now South Africans are like, it's 10 years or even 15 years since some of the allegations, but law enforcement hasn't done anything on many of these questions. So now we're like, well, why is nothing happening?
Yeah.
And in fact, I actually asked a question at the NPA recently, and a group of prosecutors came up to me and said, thank you for asking that question, because I said, how do you feel about the Zondo Commission report? Because it put you, the NPA, in a difficult position as well, because it created doubt.
Expectations.
Exactly,
yes.
But it didn't give you the evidence, and now you can't prosecute. And let's just say that people resonated with that at the NPA because they also feel as if they don't have the material to follow through the prosecutions, and we haven't seen them. So the outcome of the Zondo Commission, at least as we sit here, can't be seen as a success right now.
No. It was a monumental failure. They set up NPA for failure, but NPA cannot use that as an excuse. They had a duty to pronounce and say there's nothing. But what they did, they played along. That's what they did. They played along. So they must not sit here and say this is a relief that they were not given anything. They should have done pronounce and got nothing. They played along. Andre Johnson and Batoy and them, they did a very funny thing where, because they had to play with this narrative, they had to prop up the Zondo narrative, and all the people that were mentioned there then were arrested and all of that. And even today as we speak, they are not able to put anything on them. Coco is a classical case. Got woken up at 5 o'clock and all of that. But as we speak now, they don't have anything. Now there's leaked information as to what these people were doing. That they go to court looking the part with all empty files and look all serious as if they are there to prosecute someone. They've got evidence. When they've got empty files, all those archive files were empty. They there on a fake it till you make it mission, but at the expense of the people's integrity. That's what these people have done. That's why, for instance, for us as the MK party, we are going to be starting a process this year. We'll talk to all the relevant parties to ensure that we deal with the fitness to hold office of Batoy and Andre Johnson, the two of them that were on top of this. I mean, Batoy is the head honcho, and she is aware of what this one has been doing, this Andre Johnson, and has done nothing for consequence management. Now that she knows that this is a fake it till you make it project. And she has done nothing, so it means she's complicit by default in this thing. So we'll be dealing with that. We'll be bringing more evidence to make the case. I mean, they also lied to the nation. This Batoy, they say, no, even the Guptas and everything. Truth of the matter is that in March 2023, and I'll give you the judgment if you don't have it, the Guptas were actually, their case was dealt with in Dubai. And it turns out that the treaty, which has been managed by Lamula and them at the time, the treaty requires that for the fraud and corruption crimes that they were charged with, you need to have warrants. On both of those, either the warrant was cancelled or the warrant did not exist. So the court says, but this is the basic requirement for the treaty to be executed. You don't have these things, we can't extradite. And this is why the Guptas in Dubai are just roaming freely, because Batoy and them failed to produce valid affidavits. And now they come up with all kinds of stories, but there's no proper legal recourse that they have taken. If they needed to challenge that, nothing has happened. So, but South Africans get told that we're trying to get them. The UAE is not cooperating. There's a lot of lies. You know, this is a problem with this country, that we are led with lies, one lie after the other. This is a problem. That's why it really MK party must come and save the situation and make sure that the country is respected, people not lied to. I mean, with the DRC thing, we hear that Kagame is saying Ramaphosa lied. You have a discussion and they discuss A and then B happens. You know, it's we're sitting with liars at the helm of the country. That situation is totally unsustainable.
Batoy denies that. I have spoken to her on the SABC on my show there as well, and we're going to be speaking to someone from the NPA soon to also understand, you know, from their perspective, what's going on here. But I think it is fair to say she denies that they haven't got serious about state capture cases. Her idea is, or her view, without speaking for her, but in that interview was, we're trying our best with low resources. But what I think is fair to say is that there's been a spectacular anticlimax since the State Capture Commission. Like you say, we were told the Guptas basically took over the country.
Yeah.
No charges, and they've never been brought before a South African court.
No.
We were told that former President Zuma was the key figure in this, and we haven't had any actual case brought before him for those. So it is a bit anticlimactic that all of a sudden.
All choreographed.
And then you have ministers who are also mentioned there, who are in the cabinet now.
Yes.
So I must say, I'm very confused
You
as to what
also
was
have
achieved.
people that have refused to go there, that were never treated like President Zuma was treated. He's not the only person that did not want to. He went there to start with for 3 days, for 3 consecutive sessions.
I was there at the time.
And then later, because of the conflict that we indicated, he refused to continue. Other people didn't set foot there, and nothing happened to them. Again, which just shows that that thing was a farce, that it was just a political mission to out the factions that were not CR aligned. That's what that thing was about.
Look, it's hard to deny that conclusion that you reach, because the commission was very soft on President Ramaphosa, let's be honest. And people who were in the cabinet, which apparently sold the country to the Gupta brothers, some were just ignored and others were punished very harshly. And that's when I started to get a bit worried and realized that we're being sold this narrative that some within the ANC were these angels who just were temporarily blind, and others were the worst thing you can ever imagine. And that's when I certainly started to become skeptical, at least about the state capture narrative as a whole and how simplistic it was. Not to say that corruption isn't a thing in South Africa and wasn't then, but this idea that only a certain few sold the country out, I think there is some evidence against that.
That's true. I mean, your big friend here, Gogo Opremajik, talks about angels with horns. So that's really what we have.
Absolutely. So we've spoken about the Zondo Commission. You mentioned that you joined the EFF, and subsequently have left the EFF as well. And you know, I'm reluctant to even go there at the moment, because, as you know, the EFF is very unhappy with me for speaking to people from MK. But I don't ask this question out of spite for the EFF, but I'm genuinely interested in why it was that you decided to join, but also why you felt that the EFF could no longer be your political home.
No, look, I think the truth of the matter is that for the same reason I joined the EFF, I've joined the MK party. Because I'm continuously looking for a vehicle that will deliver us to the promised land sooner rather than later. So the EFF was that vehicle at the time. And I mean, if you compare EFF relative to ATM, EFF was that vehicle. Now, if you compare EFF relative to MK party is that vehicle. As I said, with representation in 7 provinces, with almost a takeover in KZN and all of that, and with the kind of a margin there between the EFF and the MK party, clearly the people of South Africa have spoken to say we think the MK party is best placed to deliver us to the promised land. So that's really there's nothing necessarily that I'm sitting here and arguing about the EFF about. No. And I keep saying that my politics are politics of the left. So all my political tourism that people talk about, it's in the left side. It's not like I went to go to the DA, all these reactionary elements. So I'm within my conscience. I'm very happy that I'm staying in the left, and I'm trying to ensure that there's a real transformation in this country.
Absolutely. And was there an acrimonious fallout? Was there any interpersonal dynamics that led you to leave, or was it a purely political?
It was purely political. There's I still talk to everyone that I happen to come across, and I haven't felt necessarily rejected by anyone at a personal level. Yeah, we have all our disagreements as individuals here and there, but nothing fundamental and all of that. So I don't see the EFF as the enemy and all that.
So we now sit with an election outcome, as you've alluded to, which has taken the ANC from 57 down to actually just under 40. I mean, what do you make of this coalition government, the ANC-DA coalition, and the way it's been performing? It's now had, I think it's 8 months or so, so it's no longer a new government. And I wonder what you make of its performance so far.
First thing is I'm happy that you call it a coalition. I was correcting mainstream media that we're calling it a GNU. There's no GNU here. It's a pure coalition. As it were, it's a coalition of neoliberals. That's what we have. So it's destined to collapse. I think, in fact, the biggest loser, in fact, it's a lose-lose. This way, the DA has lost in this arrangement because they are now forced to agree with everything that the ANC is saying. Now, you hear Steenhuisen defending expropriation and all of that. You hear another one now finding a way to say, oh no, the better bill will be implemented.
It's actually
and
a
all
good
that.
thing.
So what we have is that the DA is actually going to drop in the next election much more because the stronghold of the DA does not like the ANC as it were. But at the same time, the ANC as well is also going to drop tremendously because of this sleeping partner, the DA, because people are saying, the very same people who are oppressing us, you are now in bed with them to the total exclusion of our own people, and their own people is the MK party and the EFF, ATM and all of those. For the Ramaphosa ANC to be so cozy and comfortable with the former oppressor is not sitting well with our people. And so the ANC will be punished in the next coming elections. I foresee it dropping to even 15%, the ANC. I see the DA is also going to drop to some 10% also, because both these organizations, the only people that are benefiting here are the individuals in this thing. Those are the only beneficiaries. But the ideology of the DA is being totally undermined. The ideology of the ANC is being totally undermined. So therefore, the basis of these organizations are being eroded by the inept leadership on both these organizations. They don't see that what they're doing is a self-liquidation process. So they can enjoy the honeymoon thing here, but reality is coming. They will see what we're talking about.
It is quite amazing to witness the DA in some ways defending ANC policy.
Use the word capitulating.
I watched Mr. Steenhuisen giving a speech saying, look, this expropriation act is, we disagree with the procedures, but really let's not, get too hysterical about it. And I'm like, wow, but previously the DA was exactly hysterical about it. And same with Bella. Let's see what happens with the NHI. But really, I mean, it looks like the ANC has figured out that they can do whatever they want, and the DA won't walk away.
No, of course, they've tasted the blue lights. They've tasted security. So when last year the DA complaining about crime, they don't, because the elite in the DA are now well covered. You've got a policeman in your house, you've got a policeman wherever you go and all of that. So they have forgotten that the people that they purport to be representing are still complaining about crime. So that's a situation that you have. The beneficiaries indeed is the executive, the 70-odd people. They are real beneficiaries of this thing, but both constituencies are a mess. I mean, if you look at, even the country is in a mess. Even if you look at the real figures, you look at the the fiscal deficit is projected to be upwards of 5% of the GDP. If you look at the national debt of the country, it's projected to be upwards of 80% of the GDP. If you look at the unemployment of young people, staggering 60%. I mean, you've got a government here that has got a fiscal discipline that is not prudent. You're sitting here with the underspending on key areas. I mean, how do you underspend on human settlement? We're sitting with about $500 million underspend on human settlement. We're sitting with over 300 million underspend on transport. And all of these things, they actually have a direct impact on job creation, because people building these houses will generate employment, and there would be, you buy this and you buy that here, secondary employment, all of this. So by them underspending and not doing these capital projects, they're actually undermining the economic growth, as it were. Now, while you're sitting with them being unable to do economic growth for people to look after themselves, on the other hand, then they cut the expenditure to social grants and all of that. So they take you out of the job, and instead of supporting you maybe until they can fix their mess, they even throttle you there. They've brought that down by a good 20-odd billion and all of that. So you say, it looks like we're sitting with people there that hate the people of South Africa. I mean, all of this, it just throttles the economy. It just impoverishes people. In the past financial year, we've lost something to the tune of 139 million people that have been thrown into poverty. So indeed, that's what we have here under this coalition government.
Let me put this to you, which will shock everyone, because they think this is those who think it's an MK podcast. But let me give you a critique of the MK party, which is that I think many people would agree we have a very weak government, a government that raised people's hopes sky high and is failing to deliver. However, it looks like the MK is failing to capitalize on this weak government, because you have a lot of internal strife going on in the party at the moment. And it feels like the EFF and MK have an opportunity now to really put the focus on this weak government. But the focus is actually on your fights together and also within the MK internal fights. Do you think the MK is failing to use this moment to train attention on the government and getting too lost in its own internal squabbles?
No, look, I think those observations, maybe they are out of context. Here's the context.
Sure.
The context is this, that you have a party of, call it, strangers coming together in one room all of a sudden.
Wow, I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah. So all of a sudden now you expect these people to work like a well-oiled machine. Impossible to do that. But you know, the good thing is that you can go to all the so-called factions. They're actually even factions. It's just a different point of views on how to make MK party better. You can go to any one of them. All of them swear by His Excellency President Zuma. All of them. So which is a uniting figure. That's why we pray that President Zuma must live forever and all of that. So you can see that there are no fundamental differences or anything. It's really the, you know, even with the normal management lingo, you have a storming phase and a numbing phase before things are fine.
Sure.
So this is a storming phase. I mean, within a year of the party, with the strangers put into one room to say, make this work, you will have different ideas. That's really at that stage.
Sure.
And all of that. So this had to be expected. Anything else to be artificial. Obviously, in the mix of that, you do then also have sponsored conflict and all of that, but you can't rule that out. So that is also part of the mix. But in the main, it's you can go to each faction on its own. You hear how passionate they are about MK. So all of these people are actually going to help the MK grow in that. But this is now it's important now to know that the MK party is putting up structures. to settle things down. By end of February, all the detachments, we call them detachments, all the detachments at the provincial level will be installed. All the detachments at the regions, maybe by the following month, will all be installed and all of that. And the message will go out, and keeps going out to say, now we've got a leadership that has been put into place. Can you all rally behind them? So the rollout of these detachments will manage that. So give us until June. Would have finished with all the rollouts, and then you will see us working as a well-oiled machinery. So it's a small issue, and as I say, big thing is that everybody is rallying behind President Zuma. So we don't have a problem of an ideological thing. We don't have a big church problem of the ANC where you've got capitalists and socialists fighting over the principal issues. No principal issues here. It's just personality issues. So it's a very small problem.
It's interesting to me the way that MK has managed to shock and surprise South Africans with its moves. And one thing that I have noticed about MK Party, maybe why it's captured so much imagination, is that you act before you speak. So I mean, the party is launched, but it's clear that you've already done a lot of work before it's launched. And then all of these people moving to the party, I mean, that was a sensation last year.
Yes.
Can we expect more surprises this year? Do you think South Africans will be again surprised by the moves you make? Can you tell us about any?
No. Obviously, the MK party is growing by the minute and all of that. So I think South Africa must be ready for a seriously growing MK party, or growing exponentially in this party, and we are readying ourselves now to take over the 2026 elections. One of the reasons why even in the by-elections we're not doing so well is because we didn't have structures on the ground and all of that. We didn't have people that talk to people on the ground. We had another set of strangers that were sprung on people and all of that. So now, with all the structures being in place, as I say, by June latest, we should be ready for 2026, and we are very clear. The ground is fertile. People are tired of the ANC. People are tired of the DA. So we are very confident that the MK party will take over. We were robbed in 2024, but in 2029 we'll make sure that there's proper oversight in that IEC to make sure that people must get what they deserve. And we think the MK party actually did get its 2/3 majority, but we were robbed. But we'll deal with that in 2029.
There's this idea circulating that in 2026 or 27, when that election happens, you actually have like sleepers in different parties, especially the ANC, that might emerge. Is there truth to that suggestion?
That's very true. Yes, I can confirm that we have them everywhere. This is why in the MK party constitution we allow dual membership. The dual membership is not just for President Zuma. It's because we know that our people are everywhere, but it's just that we can't sustain them. In the MK party, if they were to be known, they're exposed, then they lose their income. We don't want that. So they must continue with their income. So yeah, indeed, that is exactly why the MK party will take over, because we've got our people, even in the DA, we've got I'm telling you, we have our people everywhere. So 2029, a big shocker is coming when people now will say, well, up to here, no further. And all the sleepers will wake up and all that. So as I say, I'm confirming that we are everywhere.
So we might see Helen Zille joining us.
Anything is possible.
But she's also been on this podcast, so there you go.
So
before we round off, we've seen a lot of development on the foreign policy side in South Africa recently, and I wonder if I can just get your views on. Let's start with the situation between South Africa and Rwanda, because we saw President Kagame come out very strongly against President Ramaphosa, as you alluded to earlier, saying he's hearing different things and the messages are mixed. And it's really the first time that I can remember where you see an African leader in public basically scolding a South African president.
Yeah.
What do you make of that situation and how South Africa has been handling the situation in the Eastern DRC?
Yeah, in fact, today in this fake State of the Nation address happening on the 6th of February, we go there as the MK party as a nation in grieving, to represent the nation in grieving. Tonight will be addressed by a man with blood in his hands. 14 of our young soldiers that were wasted there, those lives should have been saved. If South Africa was honest with everyone as to what is happening, the country was told that those soldiers went there for a peace project and all that. So we all relaxed and said, well, South Africa knows something about peaceful settlements and all of that. So therefore, they're exporting their knowledge on this thing. And we expected people to go around with their white flags and peace and not antagonizing anybody and all of that. But instead, what seems to be happening there now is that you've got our soldiers that are now plunged into civil war. So when you do this thing, it means you've basically taken a side. And that was not the understanding. We didn't go there to take anybody's side against anybody and all that. We went there supposedly went there for a peace mission to install peace. That's what we went there for. So one would have thought that what South Africa would have done when they get there is to make sure that all the warring parties, all the countries that are involved, there's quite a couple of them, all the countries that are involved, they must sit around the table and have their own economic condenser, because it's about the resources issue more than it is about the other Hutu Tutsi stuff. It's less about that, but it's more about the economic issues there. And also I must just put on record as well that as the MK party, we don't condone the stealing of minerals and that Rwanda being used as a safe passage of those minerals. We do not condone that. But we don't think that to manage the situation, therefore blood must flow and all of that. So we cannot have another Afghanistan in our continent. We cannot have another Ukraine in our this is now becoming another Ukraine situation, because what you're going to have is that the people that are interested in those minerals will strengthen those rebels with sophisticated equipment and all of that. The other ones now will also find other friends elsewhere. And then what we have a Ukraine here. So it's all this brinkmanship must stop. This whole notion of who can peace further than the other must stop. What must happen is a political dialogue that must bring peace in the region. And all of that's what must happen in that region. But the South African government doesn't have a clue what to do. They can't even get their bodies out and all of that. So it just shows that we are really led by people that hasn't got the focused idea of how to run a country.
On that note, and to conclude, staying with global events, I mean, what do you make of the statements that have been made by President Trump? As we film this, Secretary of State Marco Rubio now saying that supposed very bad things are happening in South Africa, land is being seized and confiscated, and it sounds like there's a real aggressive rhetoric coming out of the US towards South Africa right now.
Yeah, no, those comments are really ill-informed. They are ill-informed by AfriForum and all of that. I mean, even Stan Hazen knows that that is not the case. So I think as soon as all that crew, Elon Musk included, once they get told that in fact this expropriation thing is not even the real thing that is happening here. It's just a formalization of what was already happening. It's a formalization of a willing buyer, willing seller. No, it's nothing compared to what Trump thinks it is. No, actually, this thing just formalizes this thing. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that this law is enabling that was not already happening. Whether you talk about expropriation for public good, we've had Gautrain that happened without this law. Whether you talk about expropriation for public interest and so on, we've had the farms in Malamala where money was given to the farmers and all that. We still have the corruption issues there as well, which must be dealt with. But there's absolutely nothing that this law has brought that could not have been done before. So the reaction by Trump is based really on the lies by the AfriForum. As soon as he says that actually this is more manner, maybe he will definitely slow down, because this appropriation thing is manna from heaven. All the farmers are about to get super rich. Now, even if you look at the budget on the land reforms department, they are getting ballooned up, getting ready to give money to the white farmers. This is what this is about and all that, but it's couched as if it's this progressive thing. There's nothing progressive about this thing and all that. So Trump will soon realize that. By the way, for us, we also see the fact that Trump thinks nothing about Africa, thinks nothing about South Africa. It's actually an opportunity that must be exploited. It gives us a chance to be truly sovereign. It takes out the big brother effect. So the more he says those kinds of things, I sit here and say, all the better. Then South Africa must stand on its 2 feet, leverage its economic wealth, and be and sit as an equal partner on the table. That's what South Africa should do. So it's an opportunity to achieve true sovereignty. I think we should celebrate the fact that Trump has got issues with South Africa. I celebrate that, because it means South Africa is free to be sovereign. And one of the things that South Africa must also do is to break away from the Commonwealth as well. Because if we break away from the Commonwealth, one of the deal breakers in being a member of the Commonwealth is that you must agree that the Crown must be the head of the Commonwealth. This is a deal breaker. If you do not agree with that, you are out. So by South Africa being in the Commonwealth, it means South Africa is agreeing to be headed by the UK, basically. So South Africa agrees to be the puppet of the UK. So for us as MK, we're anti those imperialistic notions, those neo-colonial arrangements, and we're saying the time has come for South Africa to be truly sovereign, and we do want to ensure that there's expropriation of land without compensation. No one came here from Netherlands or anywhere in Europe carrying land in dromedaries. They came here on their own and all that. You don't get a person stealing your car and then putting in new rims and everything, and then all of a sudden you must pay more for that car. You just must get your car back. The fact that the person is putting in new mags, well, it's probably a bit of atonement for the fact that he stole the car in the first place. And by the way, some of the things that we don't even talk about in the stealing of the land are the economics that were also stolen. Our people, our forefathers had livestock and all of that. Not much is being said about that. There was an economic life that was disrupted that must be restored. And only MK Party understands this discussion, because we are also saying as the MK Party that the constitution of this country is also legalizing land theft. If you go to the constitution, section 25, subsection 7, there's a cutoff date there, 19 June 1913, beyond which only then you can deal with issues of redistribution and restitution, not before that date. So the MK Party is busy with a private members bill to push that date back to 6 April 1652, when Jan van Riebeeck set foot in the country for the first time. most of our land was robbed in that period, in the 1600s and 1700s, not now in 1913 and all that. So only the MK party has got a clear agenda of ensuring that the land must get back to its original, to its rightful owners, as it were. So we're pushing that, but I must conclude by saying we're not chasing anybody away. We're saying that the white farmers that are busy with other doing, there's no intention to disrupt that. We want them to continue doing that, except that they will do that under a lease, as it were. So we're not going to disrupt anybody. They'll continue farming, so they mustn't get nervous that we're going to do as Zimbabwe. We are not going to do as Zimbabwe here. We'll allow them to do what they do in those things, but the ownership must be owned by the people of South Africa under the custodianship of the state. And we also want our kings and chiefs to play a role in the administration of those lands, pretty much like we have with Ingonyama Trust, perfect model, and all of that. Ingonyama Trust accounts to Parliament every year, as it were. So we want a situation like that, where the kings, the land was taken away from the kings. So we want the kings to be at the center, and our queens, traditional leadership must be at the center of administering the land, with obviously cooperation with the state. So that's a situation that we want, and it's inclusive of everybody. No one is chased to the sea, but the land belongs to the people of this country. So the state must get that back and be the custodianship and make sure that everybody benefits.
Well, Mr. Mzwanele Manyi, it's been great having you on SMWX. Thank you for sharing your insights. I think we might need to have a part 2
That's
because
fine.
The land question, I realize we could have a whole podcast on as well.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing your insights. It's been interesting without interruption
Yes.
to hear about your political journey and your views as well.
Sure.
And wishing you all the best in your work as a public representative. And thanks for gracing this platform.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I again feel honored to have cracked this invite. This is a very prestigious platform. So for a mere mortal like me to be here is a real privilege. Thank you very much.
The pleasure is ours.
Okay.
The pleasure is ours.
Sure.
Thank you. Also, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment down below. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from Mr. Manyi. You know, SMWX is a platform where we bring you many different perspectives and you can make up your mind. I'm sure this has helped you to gain deeper insight on South African politics. Like, share, subscribe, help us get to 200,000 subscribers, and keep it locked on SMWX. Aye. Fam, just want to give a shout out to 2 incredible partners who have helped make this podcast possible. First up, a massive thank you to Curiocity Cape Town for providing us with top-tier accommodation while we were in the city. They also gave us the stylish studio from which to shoot. Also, a massive thank you to Pace Car Rental for supporting us with transport during our time on the road, getting us to the key interviews and covering all the important events. So, if you're ever in Cape Town next time, check out Curiocity for your accommodation. And if you ever need a car rental company, you know, as an SMWX subscriber, you need to show love to Pace Car Rental. Aye.